Hello, this is X's Prime, and it's now that they release its thoughts on the ninth batch of zoopedia entries. In terms of the entries, so of course going in alphabetical order to start off with, got the Bozeman's rainbow fish. So this is the it's said to be the case of these zoopedia entries in which the only entirely new animal to be revealed is a fish. And the Bozeman's rainbow fish, what I found out is a pretty common fish. I think it's a fish that's found in the freshwater source of Australia. I might actually just do a quick check on the. Oh, okay, it's somewhere in Southeast Asia actually. Okay, so I got another Southeast Asian of freshwater fish. It is found in the different parts of Indonesia to the clown low. That's a pretty good choice in terms of favorite fish. I know of the sort of main fish who looks completely different to this, but you know it looks for it. I do like the blue in the front of the body there. It's a nice looking fish. I'm not sure if I've seen this in real life or not. So you know, I'm not the biggest fish. It's definitely one of the groups that have the least expertise on. And then we got the usual pair of returning exhibit animals, with the eastern brown snake. So that is another, just one of the two Australian elephants in the base game. I don't think the eastern brown snake even needed to be brought back at all, since it's a very well. I am aware that it is more notable snakes in Australia. It's amongst the most dangerous snakes in Australia. It is very rare in captivity because of that, and I think a lot of people would have preferred something else, even if it does seem like Oceania was represented slightly better than the first game at launch, since it got two habitat animals in Oceania, rather than just one. But what I think is probably good is that the model has been left unchanged. It's another snake that's been left unchanged, unfortunately. So it makes the Western Diamondback rattlesnake seem like a weird exception, even though it's. I think when taking into account that they sort of confirmed so far, I wouldn't say it's one of the aspects that really needed changing. I think a lot of people just bring up the boa constrictor. So, but these first game, it's I guess one of the better base game snakes, and is the better looking. So even if the could be changed to be more accurate, and I think there's wants to be a bit bulkier. It's but we got the concerning habitat animals. The other one that hasn't been fully confirmed before then, the Galapagos giant tortoise that got the just argue most iconic species of tortoise brought back, which makes sense. As a decent representation of captivity, it does allow the Galapagos size to be represented, though it might still be that this is the I think of the launch this is the only resident Galapagos. So, but it does, but I guess there's just a technically South American animal, so you can maybe say that South. In terms of the habitats, it's represented a bit better, though I'm not sure how many terms of exhibitors, I might just presentation, but yeah, I might have changed the model. It doesn't change the head a bit. It doesn't that different to the original model, which is it's air, but I'm hoping that the max's size has increased and we get some better shell variations, especially knowing that this was actually the animal teaser last week. I think there was some what it would be. I personally thought it was be the common ostrich. I've been think that, but it turns out if you just click on the yeah, so yeah, there was actually a innovative Galapagos shark with a very Swandersaurus with a very long neck. Yeah, and I think this was actually represented in the Siripi Siwania now, in which the Southern African style. So which there was some debate on what it was. I've read also primates, lemur. I think there's some what would be a turtle, but I did feel like it was some one of the giant tortoise species, considering that it's a shelled animal with legs and a very prominent neck, which does apply with certain individuals to Galapagos tortoise. Though I have noticed that they've actually gone for the non-specific routes of the Galapagos jaw in the first game, which I feel like it's probably going to upset some people, but considering how varied in appearance and just the different subspecies Galapagos jaw. So for me personally, I'm okay with to go for the non-specific routes, and so most is they don't specify which subspecies of Galapagos giant tortoise they've got on species. Go, and then we got the Malayan tapir, the animal that was actually revealed in the bird video, but it's great to have that it's been given its zoopedia entry, I think, on its browsing there, which is interesting, but it's nice to have. Yeah, I would really want the Brazilian tapir to be in here as well, but it's still a edition. It was one favorite us in the first game, mainly because of the new model, and it still gets to keep the new model. Which is nice. And then we move on to the other exhibit animal, the red-kneed tarantula. Just like the first game, it's Brachypelma hameri. I guess it's in the. I think Brachypelma is slightly more common in captivity. Would have maybe preferred that, and just add a bit of but no, it's still got hameri here. Which I mean, it's still a red-kneed tarantula nonetheless. And it says tarantulas. I think they stood out as that best represent how outdated the models for the base game exhibit owls are, with none of the tarantulas really looking hairy, with them which seemingly left unchanged, though it is in the darkened hair. So maybe hard the fact that it's been left unchanged, but I think it was the first tarantula. I mean, it's the coloration is fairly accurate, and it's actually proportioned like a tarantula. I really hope that France don't bring back the Goliath bird eating changes. I would really be upset about that, because that model was shit. And and then we got the animal that was actually teased in the bird video, so it's teasing the plant video, which I think is going to be released on Thursday. mountain hare, which is by far the most unique habitat on the series, since, well, the first game didn't have any lagomorphs. So I guess that's a breath of fresh air that we've actually got 3 animals now that are entirely different to the first game, but with the other 2, the Goodfellas tree kangaroo, golden light tower, they were both members of orders that's already well represented again in the first games, when represented in the first game, since it had a few macropods, which is what the Goodfellas tree is, and it has a couple of new wild monkeys. But definitely don't have any lagomorphs, which it's not really a group of animals that say outside of the domestic rabbits I really see represented about the two, since they're a rare sighting in captivity. The domestic rabbit is the only exception, mainly because it's a domestic animal. But I guess the mountain hare is one of the more notable lagomorphs in captivity, and it's another animal that you could put in the Scott Reserve. The model does look very good. The hair in the two had more white to it, so it was more brown. So it does seem to indicate that it will have color variations, which would be great. I don't think I'm really going to be. It's still nice. So we actually got something entirely different. That isn't a flying bird or an aquarium animal. Speaking of aquarium animal, the remaining that's already been confirmed that now has its zoopedia entry. The regal tag has its tree now, or aka ballot surgeonfish as it's being called here, aka Pacific blue tag, aka hippo tag. In Paraca, Hepatus has multiple common names, so I don't really remember. So I think there's some that are going to call it blue tang. There's others that are going to call it what it's referred to in the zoopedia, which is I think what most scientists refer to as the pallet surgeonfish. I think I personally tend to call it the regal tang. Which I think I first would call it blue tang, but I diffuse with the other tangs that have the name blue tang, which have their own distinct names, since this name is also used for the Atlantic blue tang and the powder blue surgeonfish. But I think it has a less prominent pectoral face. There's less yellow to it. I'm not sure this indicates sexual dimorphism or not, but I think the regal tang is my favourite fish, maybe because it's blue, which is my favourite colour. And so it does indicate that it's definitely going to be that any other aquarium mouse that's get field will be entirely new. And then finally, you got another returning habitat animal. This is the last, the western lowland gorilla, another animal that was actually already in the gameplay photos of the Southeast Asia Zoo, which had the senior education zoo with a gorilla on it, and we are getting the specifically, which is by far the main gorilla that you would see in zoos. And I can never tell that, the texturing has improved. I think it has a more accurate color, which is great, and that's definitely another that needed to be applied to with the gorilla being the flagship out for the jungles of Africa and the common sighting in zoos. So there we go. So I think also the zoopedia entries. We got mostly returning animals confers, the usual pair of returning exhibit animal. Was a new fish, but so we've actually got entirely few animal yeah, so pretty much getting the U. So there's and I think I'll just do a junkyard. No, that's the updated cover to the video about to tell us. Now, Spark Snake, Galapagos Giant Tortoise, and the Red Knee Tarantula. And both series of dolls I thought would make it Breakable Hero based with Smithy, and so forth. That's the it's entirely different snake, but that turns out being not being the case. So I think that's all that to say. So we'll have next.